you can train your mental fitness whether you're well or unwell. It doesn't necessarily out you as someone who's struggling, and it's something we can all participate in together.
If you have just stumbled across this episode, this might be exactly what you need right now. Life can feel overwhelming, and maybe you are doing your best to hold it together on the outside. But inside, the stresses and the worries are just piling up. So today you will hear from Jacob Muller, who is the Head of Impact and Evaluation at Gotcha for Life, a foundation that has travelled across Australia listening to thousands just like you, delivering over 2,500 community workshops and speaking face-to-face with more than 100,000 Australians in the past year alone. If you have ever wondered what real mental fitness looks like, or if you are searching for simple steps that could make a difference for yourself, for your family, for your mates, this conversation is here to help. You are not alone, and you are in the right place. Stick with us, and this could be the start of something better. So good morning, Jacob. Thank you so much for joining the Wellness Nurse podcast today.
Morning,
it is lovely to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and likewise.
Jacob, from all these conversations and workshops, what is the single most important message you want every Australian, especially those in midlife, to hear right now about mental fitness and wellbeing?
Yeah, thanks, Ros. It's great to be here. And look, we have a really simple message we share with everyone who we come across at Gotcha for Life. We come across all walks of life, and our message is just don't worry alone. I think that applies to everyone, but I completely appreciate, there are times in our life where there are pressures that can accumulate, and this message can become particularly important. I know when you get into your sort of 40s and 50s and 60s, many of us have pressures coming at us from all angles. We have children or adult children who continue to rely on us. Many of us have parents who are aging and, again, increasingly relying on us. And then from a career point of view, we've moved into a point in our careers where we have more responsibility than we ever have. We might have staff who report into us, or we might be the subject matter expert in our area. And so increasingly people are relying on us to be the expert and to provide confidence and credibility. And I think with all of these pressures, the very natural temptation is to kind of just soldier on with life. And it may feel important to show this exterior of strength and confidence, to be that support that you need to be for everyone else. But our message to you would be not to worry alone. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to share the load. We know that connection is the antidote to loneliness. But the research also says that connection promotes well-being. It's actually one of the strongest promoters of well-being. And it also has a really strong preventative impact on mental ill health. So, yeah, don't worry alone.
Absolutely. It's such a fabulous message, and social connection is, as you say, it is prevention, and we can just go out and be with friends, and that prevents that feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult to step out, but I know you're going to tell us all about how we can do that better.
Absolutely.
So what does mental fitness mean in everyday life for Australian adults, and why does it matter now more than ever?
Mental fitness is an interesting term. I personally am a huge fan of it. We define mental fitness as your ability to navigate life's ups and downs. We think about mental fitness in a similar way to physical fitness. Most people wouldn't expect that they can go out and run a marathon without any training. Some people might try, but most people wouldn't be able to do it. In the same sense, we've got to train our mental fitness in a similar way. We actually like to share an image in our presentations of an Olympic weightlifter. And in the image, the weightlifter has, really giant barbell with a bunch of plates on either side, and it's pressed above their head. And you can really see that they're sort of struggling under the pressure of it, but they've just got it overhead. And, you look at someone that's so powerful and so capable of lifting that, and you know that it's not the first day they've lifted up a weight. And you know that it's probably been many years of training in order to get to that point. And they might have started with a much smaller weight, perhaps even just getting the bar overhead initially before they're able to get to that day where they're competing. And we think about mental fitness in a similar way. I guess you could think about challenges that life throws at you, many of which are completely out of control, as that day where the Olympic weightlifter is pushing the big weight overhead. That's the most challenging day, right? And so training our mental fitness then is all of those small instances where we've been building up to that weight, training with smaller weights in order to build the strength to withstand life's challenges. And I think the only thing that looks different really is the kind of exercises we do to train our mental fitness. So it's not a barbell in this case. And, the evidence shows that there are lots of different things we can do. There are sort of 20 different protective factors or more that we can deploy to train our mental fitness, but we like to focus on 3 at Gotcha for Life. So we have social connectedness, which we just talked about a second ago. We have emotional adaptability, which is our ability to recognize and manage and respond in healthy ways to our emotions and also articulate them in ways that promote connection. And then our ability to ask for help and recognize when we really need help in our life. That might be help from your partner. It might be asking for help from a mentor or a boss, or it might be asking for help from a health professional. So social connectedness, emotional adaptability, help seeking, they're our 3 protective factors.
I love that analogy that you just shared. It's preparing for the big days, if in that example of the weightlifter. And just to share something, I guess, a little bit personal, everybody has something that's going on in their life. And I just started to learn about mental fitness a couple of years ago, really, which is interesting because I'm a registered nurse. I've done a Master's of Public Health. I hadn't heard of that term, mental fitness, and yet it became so important for me. So as I have been developing my emotional adaptability and my resilience, it has helped me prepare for a marriage breakdown. And, without that training, I would be an even bigger mess. But really, I am, and I think, people can relate to that. It's not an easy thing to go through.
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful for the time that I put in strengthening my self-belief and resilience and mindfulness and all of those things in preparation for an event that I didn't know was going to take place.
Yeah.
So, I love that it's preventive. It is preparation. And just like a weightlifter can't lift those big weights on day one, we start small, and starting small is just so, so important.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks for sharing that, Ros. And look, I grew up in a household with a mum who is also a nurse. She's a mental health nurse. And so, the prevention lens, even for me, growing up in a household where conversations about mental health were really normal, and that prevention conversation didn't come until much later in my life, because I think the medical system is much more focused on pathology and how to cure illness rather than that proactive and preventative approach. So, I think it's something our country really needs to hear more of and to embrace so that we can weather whatever storms life throws at us. And I think you raise a good point as well, that being mentally fit doesn't mean that when you go through hard times, they're all of a sudden going to be easy. But the weight will certainly be less if you have the right things in place and if you've done the reps, if you've put in the work to strengthen your fitness beforehand.
That's it. And you have some strategies that you can fall back on.
Yeah.
And you've established those connections with people that you can call on. So,
Completely.
yeah, recent data show increasing demand, unfortunately, for mental health support in regional and remote areas. And Australia's made up a lot of that. So, what unique challenges are you seeing in these communities, and how is Gotcha for Life addressing them?
Yeah, it's a good question, and this one's actually pretty close to home for me. So I actually lived in country New South Wales for a few years. Um, yeah, in my late teenage years, and I actually remember not long after I moved to country New South Wales, a town called Tamworth.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's where I grew up.
Oh,
Well, I had
really?
all my high school years in Tamworth.
How
Tamworth High
incredible!
School, yes,
How great! So
yes.
I actually moved to Tamworth in my HSC years, and I went to a school called Farrer.
Oh, okay,
And
yes.
yeah, I remember not long after I moved, I had to see a GP for something. Um, and because I was new to the town, I hadn't actually seen a GP there before. And it hadn't even occurred to me that access could be a challenge because of where I'd come from in Sydney beforehand. But I rang around to the clinics around town and realised not long after that none of the clinics were accepting new patients because they were
Mm.
all over capacity. And so, very
Oh dear.
practically, my options at the time were drive 3 hours to Port Macquarie to see a GP or take myself to the emergency room, which,
Oh
wasn't an
dear.
emergency situation. Um, so, yeah, I think access is a real genuine challenge in country towns. I know, services and our government are putting in place things to try and ease that burden. And I think there are some good options in place now for people. I would say that, particularly if you need some kind of help in the mental health space, provided you can get in to see a GP nowadays, wherever that may be.
Mm.
The government has good mechanisms around their mental health care plan and subsidised counselling and psychology sessions. And if you don't have access to something like that in your town, a lot of clinics now offer telehealth. So the process is quite straightforward, and I'll guarantee you, if you're in that place where you could benefit from some kind of help, it's worth working a bit to try and find some options that are available to you. I'd also add, if you're feeling really stuck and a bit paralyzed, you can always call Lifeline. People think about Lifeline as a crisis service where you would really only call if you're in an incredibly difficult situation, but knowing some of the leadership team at Lifeline, they've expressed to me that sometimes people, when they're feeling a bit stuck, and they act as a bit of a referral service, so they can help you unpack what options are available to you, whether it's national services or whether it's something in your local area. Um,
That's mm, that's really
yeah,
good to know. Sometimes people don't know where to start. Lifeline is such an amazing organisation,
yeah,
and yes, so if you're listening and you know you need help, but you don't know where to start, perhaps Lifeline is a good place just to call and take
yeah.
it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In terms of what we do at Gotcha in regional remote communities, we're much more focused at the prevention end of the spectrum, as I mentioned. And so this kind of gets to the other part of the challenges of rural regional areas, which is actually around stigma. We sit really nicely in the prevention end of the spectrum, I think, because our framing around mental fitness is a really great way to address some of that stigma. When you think about the language, and language really matters in these kinds of things, mental health, mental ill health, and mental illness, they are deficit based terms. It almost trains the attention to what's wrong. And I think in country towns, it can be really challenging to come forward and use language about where you're at that kind of insinuates that something is wrong. And I think our language around mental fitness really works well in those communities because you can train your mental fitness whether you're well or unwell. It doesn't necessarily out you as someone who's struggling, and it's something we can all participate in together. So what we do is where we go out into communities and we run workshops in all different parts: sports clubs, schools, community organizations, workplaces, slightly different messages to each of those audiences depending on who we're talking to, but the core of it is around that message of we can all build our mental fitness with consistent practices. It's actually really accessible. It's nowhere near as hard as lifting that heavy barbell over your head. And we start to introduce some of those practical tools to build your mental fitness. So that's the main focus in regional areas. We have longer term programs we run as well, particularly in schools that run for multiple years. We're starting to offer those in regional areas as well. But for the most part, we see our role for now as sort of building a bit of awareness in regional communities and starting to break down some of those stigmas so people feel comfortable to share and connect more in a vulnerable way with the people in their village.
So in practical terms, how are you breaking down those stigmas?
So if we put ourselves if we imagine we're in a workshop in a rural community, let's just say we're in Tamworth and we're in a sports club full of 16-year-old boys. There are a few different things we'll do in that workshop context to try and break down those walls. The first thing we do, and this really comes out of observations from hundreds or thousands of workshops we've run, I can tell you that almost everyone is struggling in some way. Almost everyone is struggling, or they have recently. For whatever reason, Aussie culture, we have bravado, we're larrikins, we're focused on the banter and not about sharing vulnerably what those struggles are that we're going through. So one of the first things we do in that workshop context is we want to prove to everyone that everyone is struggling. So we have this activity we run in different variations, but a lot of the time it's a step to the line exercise. So we'll get people in a room in two lines facing each other, and we'll say step to the line if, and we'll say a statement. We usually start really easy, so it's step to the line if you had breakfast this morning. But once everyone gets comfortable, we start building towards a bit more vulnerable sharing. So we'll say things like step to the line if someone in your life has struggled in the last 6 months and you've been there for them to support them. And eventually it gets personal. We'll say step to the line if you've had a worry that's impacted your sleep in the last 6 months. And then we'll filter down to 3 months and 1 month and 1 week.
Yeah.
And in almost every situation, everyone in the room is still at that line, standing there when we say in the last month or the last week. And I think that's kind of a moment where the walls tend to come down because, imagine in that sports club, all these boys know each other. In a workplace, all these colleagues know each other in a certain way. But because of that bravado or that larrikinism, they've never seen this side of people, which is that they are going through stuff too. So I think that creates this almost unspoken release of tension around this and this understanding amongst everyone. And it's from there we start to build this safe environment where it becomes more okay to share. I'd say the other element that helps us break down the stigma in these workshops is our facilitators are often sharing their own personal stories as well. And we think it's important to model vulnerability in order to make it okay for others to share as well. So, our facilitators, whether they've had their own lived experience of struggle, a lot of us are here because loved ones in our lives have gone through some kind of hardship or challenges with mental ill health. And so by sharing those stories and modeling vulnerability and a picture of how to be that's different from just joking and having a laugh, we start to change people's views about what's possible and how we can connect with each other. And we often find by leading in that way, people start to come forward in those sessions and practice what it's like to speak honestly about where they're at.
I'm just touching on that comment that you said you might do this with a group of 16-year-old boys, and this might be the first time that they've seen each other in that vulnerable situation. I'm wondering, how early does Gotcha for Life step in? I was reading the other day in Denmark, as part of their curriculum, they have empathy classes every week. And I just thought that was such a beautiful thing. It is like a learned skill. Sometimes we think that some people are more empathetic than others, and that's just them. They're a natural. Empathy is a learned skill and it can be taught. And the Danish are teaching it from a very, very young age. At what age are we looking to introduce these concepts in your workshops?
Yeah, it's I also heard about the Danish study, and I think
Oh, did you?
it's a beautiful case study in prevention and building skills and resources in kids from a really young age. Gotcha for Life has a very similar view of things, actually. So we're starting almost as early as we can get kids. One of our kind of gold standard programs now is our mentally fit primary schools program. So that's a multi-year program where we partner with the school and the whole school community at that. And so we work with the kids, we work with the leadership team at the school, the staff, and the parents. And it's all around building a shared language and a shared approach to prevention and building mental fitness. Kids are participating in that program as early as kindergarten.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we just think it's so crucial because Gotcha, with some amazing program partners we work with, like Tomorrow Man and Tomorrow Woman. We have been in high schools for a number of years now. A lot of kids have already learned ways to be and ways to express themselves and ways to belong by the time they get into high school. And at that point, working with them is about unlearning before we can teach new habits. And so we saw it as almost crucial to start before those habits get bedded in. And so if we can teach those skills around social connectedness and emotional adaptability and help seeking as early as possible, then they're going to have them there for life. And it's interesting you mentioned empathy, because that's one of the elements of our framework. We see, within our social connectedness pillar, we have skills we're trying to teach kids, and empathy is absolutely one of those, where we'll have kids work through exercises from very young ages to try and build empathy for their classmates and their teachers and everyone in the village.
Yeah, everyone in the village. That's it, isn't it? We're connected with our people in our village, with our tribes, with the groups that we are a part of. So important. Gotcha for Life has reached a lot of schools, a lot of workplaces across Australia. If anybody is listening and they think, well, we would love you to come to our school, how would they start that process, and how easy is it to invite you in and have you as a part of their curriculum?
It's a great question. That particular program has been so successful in schools, and we've just got such incredible feedback and case studies from the schools we've worked with. So the program is growing quite rapidly at the moment. So in fact, we're actually just hiring our first person on the ground in Queensland, and we'll be offering the program to schools in the Queensland area, particularly Greater Brisbane. And then there's our program in New South Wales, which is really well bedded in now. For schools outside of those areas, where it's quite easy to reach out to us and express interest. If you just Googled Gotcha for Life and clicked on our mentally fit primary schools or high schools program, you could register your interest. And basically in different parts of the country now, we're seeing where the interest and the need is, and we're trying to find ways to put resources in those areas so we can offer the program in a fully funded way, meaning it's no cost to the school. And for us, it's much easier to devote the funding and resources and to hire people if we can see there's a concentration of need. So we've noticed recently in places like towards Wollongong, and we've had some interest from the Byron Bay area as well, where collectives of schools or dioceses get together and they express interest on behalf of their region, which is a really great way to get kickstarted if you want to bring mental fitness and that sort of preventative approach to your region. Just band together and come to us and show that there's a real need in your area.
That's great. And how does Gotcha for Life measure the impact that it's making? And what are some of the most powerful outcomes that you've seen from the programs?
Measurement's really important for us at Gotcha. We hold the belief that we could be as well-intentioned as possible, but if we're not measuring the outcomes of what we're doing, how could we possibly know whether we're creating the change that we want to see? How we measure change depends on the type of program. So sometimes we're out in a community, like a regional community, and we'll just run a one-off session. And so the intent of those sorts of sessions are around, stigma, changing people's knowledge about mental fitness and improving their literacy and helping them feel motivated to take action. So they're the sorts of things that we're measuring in those sessions. And then in our longer term programs, where it's really important to us that we can measure how people are changing their behavior across time. So have they actually changed their habits around how they connect with people or how they respond to their emotions? And so we go a bit deeper into the behavioural change part as we measure those multi-year interventions like the ones we run in schools. But I always think, numbers aside, the most powerful impact always comes from the stories that we hear. And, schools are quite top of mind for me just because we've spent a lot of time quite recently in schools. And one does come to mind for me. So our founder, Gus Warland, is a great media personality, has actually been out visiting some schools recently doing live readings of a book he wrote called Boys Do Cry, which is sort of a book about trying to make boys feel comfortable sharing their emotions. So he's been reading that book in front of a few different classrooms and, kids have been loving it. He's a great sort of character and really fits in well in that space. We heard back from one of the schools that afternoon to say that, on the back of that reading, one of the teachers was actually approached by three of the girls. This is primary school, mind you. So she's approached by three of the girls who expressed to her that one of their friends seemed to be struggling and they were starting to get worried about her. And they wanted to know what they should do about it. And she just said to us, she was just so impressed with how mature and sophisticated the language was that they were using around this, and that they picked up on these signs and had gone to ask for help on behalf of their friend. This is primary school. This is under the age of 10. And these sorts of things are becoming second nature to kids. And that teacher said, we really credit the work Gotcha's done in our school to shift our understanding and the language we use to make it safe for kids to share in this way. So I think, the data is powerful, but hearing stories like that really make you realize that if you do a good job in different communities, it's not about what you say when you're in the room, it's about what happens when you step out that really matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, it could be a polished presentation, but if there's no change, then really, at the end of the day, that's not what we're all looking for. I mean, we want to see lives changed and we want to see lives saved. We want people to reach out if you see something that is not right and someone is struggling, have a conversation with that person and reach out with them or on behalf of them to somebody that can help. Yeah, what a beautiful story. So if somebody is listening right now and feels isolated, feels disconnected today, what are the simplest and most immediate steps they can take to start rebuilding their mental fitness and their social support?
Something we really champion at Gotcha is that it never has to be complicated. And there's often small, really easy steps we can all take to move forward and start building our state of our mental fitness. So if you're in that place, I would just encourage you to reach out to one person today. You could just send them a text message or call them or ask them to catch up. It doesn't have to be complicated. So, if it helps to give you some words, you could reach out to someone and say, I miss our catch-ups. Let's jump on a call or let's grab a coffee. And I spoke about the importance of vulnerability before. I think once you do connect with someone, you could lead with a bit of vulnerability. You could say, actually, the reason I reached out to you is because I think in the flurry of life and all of my responsibilities, I've been feeling a bit hollow and a bit disconnected. And so I reached out to you, and I really love these catch-ups. It fills my cup up, and I wish we could find time for this more often. And I think leading with that vulnerability might actually encourage whoever it is you're spending time with to share a bit about the ways they're struggling as well. And as a result, you'll feel closer and you'll have this safe space where you can share more. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just send off a text, and you could do it right now.
Yeah, I love that. It does take courage. It does take courage when you are the one that is feeling flat. So I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And that is why this prevention is so important, because you sort of practice it, before you really need it. So that's that side of the story. But if you are feeling really flat, keep it simple. As Jacob says, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just say, "G'day, do you want to get together for a cuppa?" That's it. Yeah. Okay. Many Australians are caring for aging parents. I mean, we've all got different things going on in our lives, but a lot of us at my age are caring for aging parents while managing their own well-being. So what mental fitness practices or resources can help this sandwich generation prevent burnout and support loved ones?
I mean, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I know there are a lot of pressures at that time in your life, and life can just feel so full. So taking time for yourself in whatever shape that might take might be really difficult, and it might feel self-indulgent, but everyone knows the oxygen mask analogy. And if we really want to be effective at caring for our parents and the people we care about, we have to take care of ourselves first. It's just not sustainable to continue to sacrifice your own needs and your well-being in the name of others. All the things we've discussed today, I think, still stand. It's about, working on the things that are protective of your well-being and your mental fitness. It's having that support crew around you, the people that you can turn to vent and talk about how you're feeling. You may not feel like you can do that with your parents. Maybe your parents are a little old-fashioned and they don't really talk about their feelings, and maybe because of the challenges they have as well, you don't want to burden them with what you're going through. But it is important we have those supports in our life as well, whether it's a friend or a professional. It's so normal now to tap into professionals, to have that space that is just for you, even if it's an hour every couple of weeks or every month, to just know that you're not burdening someone with how you're feeling, but they're there to support you, I think is a small investment you can make that will have a really big payoff in terms of your well-being, but also your ability to show up for the people that you care about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And with those mental health programs, I think it's 10 sessions, so that almost covers the year. So, dipping into to get that support from a professional will be the juice that you need to keep going for the next month with all the demands that are placed on you. Where do you see the gaps and opportunities for the healthcare system and practitioners, say like nurses or GPs, to work better with community-led mental health organisations?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, and it's difficult to answer in a simple way because services are so fragmented and they differ depending on where you are. So I'd say for health practitioners, part of it's about building up awareness of what's out there, what's kind of available in your area. Because the non-profits and other services available might offer different things and have different capacities and funding for different age groups. So I think that awareness of what's available in your area will help a lot. I think for practitioners that that kind of resonate with the language of Gotcha for Life around mental fitness. The things that we can do to engage, you could submit an inquiry with us on behalf of your service or a community that you're connected with, and we could come out to wherever you are and deliver workshops. We occasionally go to health services, but also community organisations that are connected in with health services, and we'll run sessions for them as well. It's a really great way to introduce our ideas around mental fitness and give everyone a common language that is more proactive and positively framed. The other thing is, because we do so much work in schools, any connection into schools in your area, I think we all appreciate that kids are going to be leaders one day and they're going to eventually run our country. And so what a great investment we can make in empowering the kids of the next generation, teaching them those mental fitness skills so they can have them for life. And I think any connections into schools in your area will be an investment in those kids and also in the future of your community and our country.
Absolutely. Start while they're young. It just becomes a part of their lifestyle and who they are and who we are as a community, supporting each other and looking out for one another. Last question. We often hear about resilience, but not always about the practical skills behind it. Are there any daily habits or mindsets that you would recommend for building this emotional strength, especially for those managing stress or life transitions?
I think a helpful mindset, kind of pulling together some of the elements of what we've discussed today, is you could think about your mental fitness or your resilience in terms of three buckets. You could think about your social connection bucket, your emotional adaptability bucket, or your emotional muscles, and your help seeking. And you could think about, what are the regular exercises I could be doing to strengthen all of those things during challenging times? And back to our weightlifting analogy, be strong enough when those difficult times come that we can lift that weight overhead. For the social connectedness bucket, it's just getting into a habit of staying connected to the people that fill our cup up. I can speak from my personal experience. For me, it's really important that I stay connected with my village of friends and with my family. I schedule in time to call my parents every week. And I schedule it during a time where I know I'm going to be out and about and typically on foot, and I can fit that call in. And I also have a habit with my friendship group. We call it the Wednesday Waffle, where we will record a video of ourselves, a minute or a couple of minutes, just talking life, and we'll send it into our friendship group chat. And so every Wednesday we get this flurry of videos from all of our friends just talking about their life and what's going on. And we found that to be a really beautiful little habit we can all participate in and stay connected with each other in between the moments where we actually get time to catch up, which most people would say is we never find enough time for that kind of thing. But who can't find 2 minutes to record a video while they're walking to the bus stop or on their way to work? So little things like that.
I absolutely love that. I think it's seeing an image too. It's the next best thing over a text. Yes,
Completely.
good to connect, but to see somebody's face, to hear their voice and to see their face, I think that's incredibly powerful. Yeah, what a great thing. The Wednesday Waffle.
That's it.
I love it.
Yeah, we love it as well. And I mean, we've been in a group chat and we've stayed in touch over text messaging for years. But I can't overstate how much more connected we feel seeing each other's faces every week and hearing each other's voices. Exactly like you said. It's just like, when we were in college back in the day and we were seeing each other much more regularly, we feel that level of connection now that we kind of lost over the years.
Oh, I'm going to adopt it, if that's
Please,
all right.
go for it.
I'm going to take that on board. And I think also the scheduling of the phone calls with our parents. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
I mean, if you have kids and your kids are busy, maybe it's a way to encourage them to carve out that time as well, because I appreciate,
Mm.
as a son myself, it was something that when I lead a busy life and I work a purposeful job, that I really connect with, I can focus almost too much on that at the expense
Mm.
of other things. And so, with your kids, if they're in a similar place, you could maybe workshop with them, like, what are the times of your week that you're on the road, and you
Mm.
could potentially squeeze a call in and get it into their calendars as well.
Yeah, I would love that. I'd love
Mm,
that. I think as parents, speaking as a mum, we just love those connections with our kids.
yeah,
And yeah, I would love to try and see if we can come up with a time that
yeah.
works for us all. So
Yeah, and
yeah, I
once it's
think
in the calendar
that's
and it
really
becomes
good.
a habit, you don't have to plan for it, right? It's just something
Yeah,
that you
it's
know is going
there.
to happen and doesn't require any more thought.
Yeah. Oh, Jacob, thank you so much for your insights and the incredible work that you do, the work that Gotcha for Life does for Australians. We absolutely love it, and we are grateful, and we thank you that you are building into the mental fitness of our communities and our country. So I really want to thank you for coming on today to talk with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ros. It's been a pleasure. It's been great to chat.
Mm. Oh, so look up Gotcha for Life, lots of resources on there. And also, if you are concerned about your own mental health, I do have a health selfie application. It includes a few self-health assessments. You can do a safe test of your own psychological distress if you are feeling worried. But also, seek help, get a good GP, one that you see regularly that knows you. Persevere and find a good one, and connect in with your community, with your friends, with your family. Stay safe, stay well.